Alright, welcome back to 1795 and to pretty much the very crisis moment in the engagement of the Battle of the Levant, and we are on turn 7, and on turn 7 we have to check the wind. Oh, almost rolled to a 0, was a 4, so there's no wind change. Okay, command, we have to decide the commands. Now what will happen is the French will have a formation command here with the Victoire, the Jupiter, the Barra and the Berwick, and 2 out of command ships, the Révolution and the Kesen. There we go. And the British will have 1 command group and the frigates out of command. So we'll mark the frigates so we don't forget. And initiative phase. So we roll 2 die, add audacities and see what happens. So the French rolled a 0 and the initiative goes to the British. Now, before we advance, so we know, so La Victoire has, just to display so you can see the situation regarding the damage. We have the fortitude there and the Bedford. I don't put the counters on the table all the time and stack them. I hate counter stacking. The sensor. Okay, so this is the damage situation. So from the French point of view, down to the, so Victoire has 4 rigging damage, -1 movement, and 3 hull damage. I think the dispersion of the firing and the low rolls from both sides have not been decisive enough. For the Jupiter, we have 1 rigging and 4 hull. So pretty much the Richerie had, there has been some chances of the leaders to have been wounded, but nothing came out of it. We have the Fortitude with 4 rigging damage, -1 movement and 1 hull damage. Bedford took a bit of shot into the rigging, also sailing a bit worse, and well, not really, just some dents on the hull with 1 hull damage. The sensor is with 4 rigging damage. All right. So it's the British that have to move first, and the wind is calm. We are, and Taylor is going to move first here. So we would have 2 movement points, -1 for calm and -1 for the rigging damage. Becomes a 0, but in any case we always have 1 movement point. And what Taylor gonna do? Oh, we're going to move one forward and then turn. But as we move forward and spend our movement point, the victoire and the Jupiter are going to fire into the fortitude. Fortitude has not ended its movement. I know that the Richelieu has ordered a partial broadside. That doesn't matter. Okay. Oh no, wait. I have to declare one defensive fire only. I can't declare two. Wait. So, defensive fire. I declare one of the ships to defensive fire. So it's going to be the Victoire. Okay. I can't declare two at the same time. I was thinking of other games. Okay. So, Victoire, we go to our firing table. Because Taylor will have to make a decision which might or might not allow the Jupiter to fire. And in that regard is regarding whom the Fortitude is going to fire at. So the Victoire declares a defensive fire. Now the Fortitude can reply directly to the one that made a defensive fire, and there's no more possibility of the French adding another defensive fire from another ship. But if the Fortitude doesn't reply directly to the Victoire, or the ship that declared the defensive fire, and continues the movement, then another ship can defensive fire. So it all comes to what the Fortitude decides to do. And the Fortitude, if it replies to the defensive fire, it will be only a partial. So let's resolve the Victoire defensive fire first, and then we will see what happens. Victoire is going to aim high to the rigging. The French are intent on capturing the British ships, and in this case, well, also capture Commodore Taylor. Alright, so the Victoire is a ship of the line third rate, is firing at 1 range, so that's a 12 firepower. And the Victoire is firing from starboard, so we already fired before. So 12 is shaded in white, adds 1, becomes a 13. Audacity is 0, become 13. Carronade plus 1, 14. So we are in the 14, so we put it there so we don't forget. Oh, there we go. And now we're going to roll the French. Ooh, that was an excellent roll. Okay, it's a 9. A 9, and we are French firing at the rigging. We add 1, that's a 10. We're firing with the wind. so that's a -1, becomes a 9, and we're firing in calm conditions, -2. We go back down to a 7. So 7 rigging on a 14. Wow. 6 rigging damage on the Fortitude. This was brutal because the Fortitude went to 10 rigging damage. I have to find the counter to put it there. Okay, 11, 12, I need the 9 because it has the 10 on the other side. Wow, this was devastating. Okay, there's the 9. Every 3 rigging damage takes movement points. There we go. 10 rigging damage on the Fortitude. He has -3 movement points. He will be really, really in a bad situation very, very soon. Now, after this nasty broadside, Taylor has to make a decision. Will it reply directly at the Victoire or continue the movement, because he can still, from beating to reaching, it's 0 movement points, but he then has a full broadside. But allows himself to be defensive fired by the Jupiter, or not, depends what the French side will want to do. Or the Fortitude can also fire at the Jupiter, and in this case, given it didn't reply directly to the defensive fire ship, can also be defensive fired by the Richerie. We are in a bad spot with Taylor there. Wow. Yeah, Taylor's going for maximum damage. Oh, we have to roll for if Taylor got wounded or not by the fire of the Victoire. Nope. Okay, Taylor's gonna do it. He's going to fire at the Richerie, and the Richerie will answer with the partial broadside. Wow. So this area, seen from the Bedford, the sensor is covered by the Bedford, although we can see the smoke. This area is a full smoke cloud. Okay, the Richerie Jupiter fires first, given the defensive fire. He's a third rate, ship of the line third rate, but is a partial broadside, so it counts as a 4. At a range of 1, it's a 10. It's a 10. Okay, the Jupiter is nothing else. He has a white background, so adds 1, becomes a 11. He's firing the starboard side, already fired the first. And the carronade bonus becomes a 12. He's firing at a ring, by the way, because they want to immobilize the ship. So a 12, we have to roll. Okay, we rolled a 4. So a 4 into the rigging. We are French, becomes a 5. From the 5, we're firing with the wind, becomes a 4. And we're firing in calm conditions. So that's a -2. So we have a 2 to the rigging on the 12. 3 rigging. And this means, I think if, let me just, okay. Okay, for every 3 rigging, it's -1 movement towards attacking rolls. By 1 and apply a -1 modifier. This penalty is effect the next time you ship. Okay. The situation is not good. Taylor. Okay, let's check if Taylor got wounded. Nope. Alright, Taylor is firing at the hull of the Jupiter. It's a full broadside, so he is ship of the line, 3rd rate, range of 1, it's 12, audacity plus 1 of the audacity, it's 13 plus 1 of the carronades, it's a 14, and that's pretty much it. So we put our, so we don't forget, it's a 14, and we're going to roll our red die. So it's a 6. So firing at the hull, we are British, it's a 7, and we are firing into the wind, -1 becomes a 6. So firing at the hull with a roll of 6 on the 14, it's 3 hull and 1 rigging. So the Jupiter becomes damaged in the rigging for 2 rigging, and in the hull it climbs to a 7. Its firepower is now reduced. One thing I will say, and this is the way I play this and many other games, the fire is at the same time. So the damage is applied only at any penalties will only apply once the combat is resolved. So they are firing at the same time pretty much. Okay, let's take our counters out and roll for the possibility of the Richelieu got wounded. Nope, it's a 5. It's wounded on a 9. Okay, and now Taylor will rotate for 0. So there's a lot of firing there. Now the Bedford. The Bedford has -1 for the rigging damage and -1 for calm. So on reaching he would have 5. -2, it's a 3. Okay. It will, even has 3, starts with backing sail and firing into the Jupiter. Ship of the line third rate at the range of 1 to 3. It's 8. Okay, everything good. And Audacity +1, it's a 9. And it's 3 +1 for the carronades. So it's a 10. After a while you start to remember all the modifiers and all that. So, oof, that was bad. I think there was so much smoke here that the firing was not that effective. So we have a 1 shooting at the hull, being British adds 1, but firing into the wind reduces 1, so we're shooting the hull with the 1 final, and on the 10 we did 1 rigging damage on the Jupiter. So the Jupiter becomes damaged for 3 rigging. He has -1 movement. Okay. Okay, he spent 1 movement point to back sails and fire. Now has 2 more. 2. Yeah, I can only back sails. I had 3 points. I can only back sails half the movement points. It's rounded up or rounded down, so I can only use 1 movement point. Already did, so I have to move forward. Right, 3 movement points spent. Now the sensor, we have to start. The sensor has 5 movement points, -1 for calm seas, and -1 for rigging damage. So you're going to back sails and fire at the Jupiter. A bit of cotton roll here. I love this instead of the broadside markers. It's like miniature games, just at tiny scale. So you're gonna fire at the rigging, and to hell with it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 range. The third rate at 6 range is 4. Now yeah, it's a 4, and its initial broadside, so it becomes a 6, plus the Audacity becomes a 7. Okay, let me mark that the sensor has first broadside from the port side. So we're gonna roll. We are firing at the rigging. So we rolled an 8 to the rigging. We're firing into the wind. Becomes a 9. Because of calm conditions, becomes a 7, which is -2. So 7, 7. So we go to the hit result table. 7 to the rigging. On the 7 is 2 rigging. So the Jupiter goes up to 5 rigging damage. It was not extraordinary, but every single hit counts. Okay, we spent 1 movement point, we have to spend 2 more. Okay, we are in a line abreast, not the best thing ever. Okay, British ended their movement, now it has to be the French. The French is going to use their formation command here. So we have the Victoire, which has already fired, and he has 5 movement points. -1 for the calm seas becomes a 4, -1 for rigging damage becomes a 3. Okay, so we're gonna move 1. 2, 3. We're trapping Taylor there. Given his rig is almost being dismasted, the French are very, very keen on boarding it. Okay. Now the Richerie, oh, it suffered damage. We have to roll if the Richerie got wounded. Nope. And the Jupiter has 3 movement points as well, so he will back sails. No, wait. Back sails, exactly, I'm going to do that. He back sails, now spends 1 movement point turning to running. That's 2, and we move to the rear of the Fortitude, and guess what? I'm going to fire the port broadside of the Jupiter into the rigging of Taylor to finish the business here. There we go. Smoke everywhere. Fire! Feu! Okay. The Richerie is a ship of the line, 3rd rate. Aha! But he has already hull damage, so it raises the relative rate to a 4. From range 1 becomes a 10. But is okay, a 10 is white shaded, it's +1 becomes a 11, and is the Jupiter first broadside from the port side. The guns are still unfired, so 11, 13. One thing that I must refer, and this is only my own home rule. The first broadside of the guns were not because it was the first broadside of the ship. It was because the guns were completely clean. There was no, they were ready to be fired, completely and absolutely ready to give the first shot. There was no swabbing water and everything inside. It was pristine condition to make the broadside. So I do a first broadside for each starboard and port side. Okay, it's an optional rule, and then I added a bit of more age of sail flavor to it. You don't have to use it. It really increases sometimes the importance of the first broadside, which is historical. Many battles were won, lost, many encounters, not big fleet battles, but many squadron encounters and even single ships were decided in the first broadsides, actually. Okay, I lost myself in the talk and lost the number. So we third rate, but -1 it's a +1 it's a 4. Fourth rate at range 1 it's a 10. +2 initial broadside becomes a 12. Plus 13 because it's white shaded. It's 14 because of the carronade. Firing at the hull at this point, trying to hurt. So 14, it's a 4, and there's no change with the wind because we are not, it's relative to the broadside, so we are not firing into a beating position. I count this not as the rule says, but with the relative position of both ships, and in this case, yeah, I'm not firing with the wind nor against it. So 14, I rolled a 4, and that's pretty much it. So a 4 hitting the hull in the 14, 4 hull damage in the fortitude. So the fortitude now raises up to 5 damage. Let me find the counter. All right. So it was there. Back sails, turned and moved 1, spent 3, fired, all good. Okay, the Bara. We have 5 movement points, -1 for calm seas. That's for 1, 2, 3, 4. His fire would be masked by the Jupiter, so I can't even make a partial broadside. Let me just read the masked fire rule, because it's actually pretty interesting, which is ships that sail close to other friendly ships may lose their ability to fire due to obscured lines of sight. If at any point during the activation cycle the ship has a friendly vessel in one of its port or starboard axis, or in its own axe during a pass-along, a ship must be marked as having fired the broadside facing the friendly ship. This occurs for both active and inactive ships. In the case of a pass-along, the broadside is to be marked. So basically it's masked fire, because we are right next to it. So we have to make clear of that smoke. So the Berwick has 4 movement points as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, the frigates have not fired yet, so the French did their activation of proper command. So now the British have to play something. Now the Lutin decides to increase the +1 for the small ships would have a 5. -1 for calm conditions becomes a 4. +1 for the option of increasing speed becomes a 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, we play the out of command ship here. Could we fire into? We have to check Taylor for wounds because of the Jupiter firing into it. No, it's a 6. Now I'm thinking if the Lutin should put fire into the Jupiter, and I think we should. I mean, to hell with it, right? Let's fire at rigging. But at the same time, I'm thinking that the next turn I might be able to go around the Bara, so if I open myself to being shot by the big ships or not at this point. I'll wait a bit more. And I can't really, don't know. I have to roll for the command. Nope. Okay, back to the Frenchies. The Frenchies, sure, we'll use, no, it's for the command. It's a 3, they missed, but skill can move. So running 4 movement points, calm conditions is 3. So 1, 2, 3 plus 0 on the turn. Yeah, the British have to use the Tisiphone here. We are beating. That's 2 movement points. Even if I use +1, I will be 3. 2, 3. Can't do much. So, okay. I add 1. I have 3. So 1 plus 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, the Duquesne has 3 movement points. 1, 2, 3. I could roll for the out of command. Yeah, it would be out of command. And with this, we reach the end of turn 7. Let's take the smoke out. And the situation is grim for Taylor. He has been cut out. He was quite unlucky with the rigging damage, because with calm seas, even a -1 is really decisive for the ability to maneuver. Okay, turn 8. Wind adjustment. Actually, we have run 40 minutes of turn 7, so why not we leave turn 8 for the next episode? So, well, leave your comments, leave your suggestions. We saw the defensive fire exception in play, and regarding the initial broadsides, the way I use it, and at the same time the simultaneous damage that I use. So it doesn't alter the game itself, gives more flavor for the Age of Sail, which is proper and more realistic, I think. Everything happening at the same time, and the initial broadside. things are not looking good for the Royal Navy. But, I mean, it's a good scenario. It's a very challenging one. We could just have run away, but I don't think we would run away from the French fleet. We tried and we failed, and Taylor's gonna be, we might see a boarding soon. So cheers, and see you very soon.